Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inside the Birds Week 2 NFL preview. I'm Geoff Mosher, and of course, in this show, we take you around all the games this weekend on the NFL slate, Monday night included. We go through them, we take a look at the matchups, and I try to give you my best feel for how these games are going to go based on matchups, coaching, scheme, personnel, all of that. So week 1 is underway, and we are already at week 2. And I always say this. I want to reiterate it, and then I'll leave it alone probably after this week. But week 1, I don't put a whole lot into. Week 1 is a con job. Those who listen to Inside the Birds are probably very, very familiar with hearing me say that. I don't put a lot of stock in week 1. There are always scores in week 1 that are shocking, and there were a couple this past week that we'll talk about. And then you go on to week 2, 3, 4, and you realize when you look back at the week 1 calendar, you realize that some of those winners and some of those losers that didn't seem right at the time, it was, one of those anomalies. So you don't put too much into week 1. You let things settle in. Now, of course, we will mention, obviously, the Thursday night game. The Packers are 2-0. They beat the Commanders 27-18. To be honest with you, it was not that close. It was a very one-sided game. The Packers have looked very good. Now, this is not me overreacting to either week 1, their win over the Lions, or week 2. This is me telling you, as I had been throughout the offseason, that I think the Packers are one of those teams that can be very, very good in the NFC. I thought they needed a couple of things. One, they needed to get just a little bit better play out of the quarterback. 2, I felt they needed to give the quarterback a little more weaponry. They went out and drafted Matthew Golden. And number 3, I just thought the defense needed more up front. And obviously they went out and got Micah Parsons. And you're seeing the Micah Parsons impact. I mean, he had even though he's dealing with the back injury, you can see right away he has made a huge impact on that defense, which already has some other good players. Edgerrin Cooper, entering year 2, is a player who's going to really come into his own. Van Ness, their first-round pick, Rashawn Gary, Keyshawn Nixon. This is a talented team. I've said it many times. They won double-digit games last year. They just weren't as good last year as the Vikings or Lions, 2 other teams that won double-digit games, but they were in all of their losses. All of their losses were one-possession losses. Well, now they've made a couple of big improvements. Love played very well. And when you do that and you get what you get from Micah Parsons, you got to be impressed with a team that within a 4-day span has beaten 2 teams that were in the NFC divisional round last year. They played each other. They beat the Lions in the opener, and then now they've beaten the Commanders, 2 teams that won double-digit games. And, of course, the Lions and Commanders played each other in the divisional round. So you really got to be impressed with what the Packers have done. Both games have been at Lambeau. They are a very tough team to beat at Lambeau, normally in the winter. But, hey, it's a great, great venue. They get a huge home field advantage there, even in the fall when it's not cold yet. It's still a big place for them to play. And now they're on the road for the next 2 weeks. And then basically 4 of their next 5 games are on the road away from Lambeau. So we'll see if they can keep it up. I don't think they're going to have too many problems. I think they're going to be a very good team. And we'll just see if they can avoid the injury bug. They obviously have some good weapons. Kraft has become a very good tight end. Jacobs, the running back. They can throw the ball to Dobbs. They already have an injury with Jaden Reed, but they have enough to withstand that. Sounds like Reed's going to be out for a while. He's a good player, but I just think the way this Packers team is built, their head coach, I've talked about Matt LaFleur many times. I think he's an excellent head coach. I think he's a great play caller. Now, when I say a great play caller, I don't mean that he's aggressive. He's not an aggressive guy. Okay. He's a guy who I think has a good feel for a game, good feel for when to call the run, when to call the pass, when he needs to mix it, when he needs to lean heavier on one or the other. We know he likes to run the ball. We know they don't really open it up and go crazy with the passing game, but it works. And when they do pass the ball, he has a good feel for where he wants to attack and when he wants to attack. He comes from that McVay / Shanahan lineage, and he's coached with them, I should say. And he is someone who I believe, when the way you watch him call plays in the first quarter, a lot like Kyle Shanahan, he's searching. He's trying to figure out what you're going to do when he lines up in certain packages and formations. And then he does it again later, but runs different stuff out of it because he knows how you're going to counter. So he has a counter to your counter. I think you saw that against the Commanders. They had a pretty big lead. You saw the Commanders starting to cut into it a little bit. Game got to be 17-10. They go right down the field, and then a beautiful RPO touchdown from Love to Kraft puts it 24-10 and basically puts the game away from there. Obviously Washington got a touchdown there late to make it look close, but it was really not close. The Packers were just that dominant. So they're a team certainly to watch. Hey, that one guy in the group chat who hit a 5-leg parlay week 1 and he wouldn't shut up about it for the rest of the season? Sounds like Kaplan, right? Yeah, it could be him. It could be you, and we would all want to be you. MyBookie makes it stupid easy to get in on the action, whether it's college ball, NFL, super contest, and survivor pools, all the spreads, player props, and in-game lines that you could want all under one roof. What more could you want than that? If you're new to MyBookie, use our code, THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS. Use the code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. There is no better time to jump in right now. No better place to play. Football is back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. And we'll get into this week's slate. There's obviously a bunch of 1:00 games. We can start off with the Browns and the Ravens. The Ravens are 11-point favorites at home. I believe it was 11. 11.5-point favorites over the Browns. That game against the Bills, man, was fascinating because for whatever reason, this now goes back to the playoffs last year when they played in the divisional round. The Ravens are turning the ball over in ways that they don't normally do that. And here they are with a huge lead over the Bills in Buffalo. And that was the shocking thing to me. How often do you see Buffalo getting emasculated at home? The Ravens are up 40-25. Henry rips off a 46-yard run. I mean, they are cruising. And then the Bills get a touchdown, so they're trying to make it close. And then comes a Derrick Henry fumble. Derrick Henry almost never fumbles. And then everything turns. And then it's a completely different game. Baltimore's defense, which was very good over the second half of last year, completely implodes. Some of that is to do with Josh Allen being an MVP. He was fantastic. 394 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Continues to play at an amazingly high level. He only ran for 30 yards. He did have two of those sneak or tush-push touchdowns, but he wasn't running all over. He was throwing the ball all over the place, and he leads this unbelievable comeback. They get the field goal. They win, and it's just like the divisional round with Mark Andrews not catching passes, with Mark, the turnovers that they had that they don't normally have, Lamar turning the ball over. You just wonder, how close were the Ravens to win in this game? How close were they after Buffalo had scored to just going back down, maybe getting a 3, maybe getting a 7, getting that lead back up to double digits? Absolutely feasible. It scored 40 points. They were doing whatever they wanted to do on Buffalo's defense until that fumble. And then it's almost like the football gods who know that the Bills don't lose much at home. They came out and reversed that game. So What do you expect this week from the Ravens? I expect that the Ravens will shake that off. They had a very tough loss last year, I think week 2, where they had a 10-point lead over the Raiders and they're at home, and the Raiders came back and won that game. So I have no doubt that the Ravens can shake that off. 11.5 is kind of high against a Browns team that is better than you think. What do I mean by that? Browns are going to be bad. They're going to lose a lot of games. They're going to hopefully be able to be in position to draft a quarterback. But I watched them when they were here in Philly and they had their joint practices. And, you know about Myles Garrett. Okay, that's obvious. But whenever you have a player who's a game changer like that, sure helps especially if you're not a great team. Helps to have an elite player like Myles Garrett, defensive player of the year. The rookie linebacker they got, Schlesinger, not too bad. Secondary, got some players. Flacco can be efficient. He's going to throw the ball to the opponent. It's going to happen, but he's also going to hit some big plays. He's going to hit you with the rookie, Harold Fannin Jr. Had a nice little first game. He's going to get the ball to Tillman. Maybe get the ball to Judy, Njoku. My point is they're going to lose a lot of games, but I think they're going to be competitive. So 11.5 is kind of high. Wouldn't put it past the Ravens to certainly win by 2 touchdowns. But I do think this Browns defense and this overall team, I've always thought they're well coached. Kevin Stefanski's a good coach. It's an AFC North game. So, that's going to come with its own pomp and circumstance. And, the Browns play a tough physical brand of football. Jim Schwartz is a good defensive coordinator. I don't think the Browns are going to win. I think 11.5 is high. I think the Browns could easily cover, but I would expect a bounce-back performance from the Ravens, get back on the win column, and put that Week 1 implosion behind them. If they don't, if they go to 0-2, and particularly if they give up a lot of points to the Browns, you're going to have to wonder a little bit about the defense and what's going on there. Jaguars at Bengals. The Bengals are 3.5-point favorites. The Bengals did not play well against the Browns. Yes, they won. Yes, it was an AFC North game. Yes, Zach Taylor achieved what he wanted to achieve by winning the season opener and getting off on the right foot. That's why he played his starters in the preseason quite a bit. But they didn't play well, the Bengals. They had a terrible second half. And I'm wondering if this was formulaic. They did not throw the ball all around the way the Bengals typically throw the ball all around. They ran the ball a lot with Chase Brown 21 times. They only threw the ball 25 times. Well, they threw it 23 times. There were 2 Joe Burrow runs. If those were called passes that he just ran, or maybe they were sneaks, I don't know. But the point is that they were very, very balanced. The Bengals are not ordinarily a balanced offense. Maybe they want to be, but they're usually not because they're playing from behind. So in this game, they were playing from ahead because they got a Chase Brown touchdown. And then they got a Noah Fant touchdown in the second quarter to put them up 14-7. So they weren't behind the 8 ball, although they did fall behind in the third quarter when Flacco hit Tillman with a touchdown, but then they came back and got the field goal. I'm just surprised by how little offense they were able to generate. Burrow only passed for 113 yards. They only ran for 43 yards. I think I read that they only had 7 yards after halftime, which is almost hard to believe. So they didn't play well, but they won. And now they welcome a Jaguars team that also did not play well, but won. You heard me talk last week about my excitement for this Jags offense with Liam Cohen as the new coach. Cohen comes from Tampa Bay, where he did wonders with Baker Mayfield. And you see all the talent that he's got, Brian Thomas Jr., and he's got Cedric Johnson. Travis Hunter. I don't know why I said Cedric Johnson. But, those 2 receivers, I was very interested to see how they would play. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence. You figured if Liam Cohen could do what he did with Baker Mayfield, he could finally tap in to Trevor Lawrence. Well, Lawrence didn't play very well. He didn't. And because of that, he didn't really get the ball to Brian Thomas. 1 catch for 11 yards. He didn't get the ball very much to Travis Hunter. It's 33 yards. And it was almost as if the Jaguars won because they were fortunate that the team across from them was even more defunct offensively and defensively, and that was the Panthers, who just looked terrible. So again, it's just week one, not overreacting to it. Certainly a lot of time. I think the one thing we learned, obviously, and not only in the game, but in the ensuing action from the Jaguars, is Travis Etienne has emerged as the guy for Liam Cohen for now. He had 143 yards on 16 carries. Now, Etienne can do this. He's one of those backs that can just look fantastic one game. He can look fantastic for a stretch, and then he doesn't. Then he's not running well, or he puts the ball on the ground. So we'll see. We'll see about ATN. But obviously he emerged, and then Jacksonville traded Bigsby to the Eagles. And so it looks like for now it's the ETN show until maybe at some point they might turn to their rookie Bashal Tutin that they really like. But for now it's ETN. And for now I'm still waiting to see if the Jaguar offense can really pick it up. You would thought when you looked at the schedule and you saw week 2 Jaguars Bengals, all I'm thinking of is Burrow to Chase, Burrow to Higgins. And then I was thinking about Lawrence to Brian Thomas and Lawrence to Travis Hunter. I'm hoping that we'll see that in week 2, but interesting style of play for both teams to win in week 1. Giants and Cowboys. Cowboys are 5.5-point favorites. They should be. They're home. They're generally healthy. Deron Bland got hurt. He's going to be out, but honestly, it doesn't matter. They're facing a Giants team that can't throw the football. Still don't have Andrew Howard back at left tackle. Still have offensive line issues, which means they have running the ball issues and throwing the ball issues. And what else is new? This is the New York Giants. They have lost 15 of their last 16 games against the Cowboys, and some of those games were started by Cooper Rush. So, I mean, the answers to the test are there. The Cowboys should be favored. This is not an impossible game for the Giants to win. I'm not putting the Cowboys in juggernaut territory, but you got to be able to block a little bit. And the Giants just haven't been able to do it. And with Andrew and the left tackle still out, Andrew Thomas, I don't know that anything better is in sight for them. And I know their fans want Jaxson Dart. I know that football fans want to see Jaxson Dart. I know people want something to be excited about. They gave Russell Wilson $10.5 million. I think $8 million guaranteed. They're not going to spend that money and pull the plug on Russell Wilson after one game. That's just not how it works in the NFL. They have a tough schedule. Schedule still is tough even after this game. So even though they played a Commanders team that didn't play very well in week 1 either and lost that game in a poor fashion, the schedule is only going to get tougher for them. And I don't see Jaxson Dart playing for the Giants anytime in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, and especially until Andrew Thomas gets back. Cowboys this game, they got the Chiefs in week 3, the Chargers in week 4, and they get a little bit of a break with the Saints in week 5. Then it's Eagles and Broncos, and then Eagles again in 6, 7, 8. So we're probably looking at week 9, week 10, 49ers, Bears as Jaxson Dart territory. So I know everybody wants to see it. It ain't going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. They paid Russ too much money to be a bridge, and the bridge is not going to go crumbling in one day. Now, the Giants aren't going to win a lot of games. They may not win any of them, but Russell Wilson's going to go out there and play until they're ready. And it's got to start with having a healthy left tackle. If they don't have a healthy left tackle, then you might as well not throw Dart in because he's just going to get killed. Cowboys should win the game. Had plenty of rest coming off the loss to the Eagles. They'll be motivated. They know that a couple of plays here and there, and maybe they could have won that game. And again, the Giants are their favorite team to play over the last few years because they always win. Bears, Lions. Well, this one's a really interesting matchup. The Bears had the Vikings on the ropes in week 1. They were going to get off to this great start under their new coach, Ben Johnson. And then what happened? They turned into the Ravens, so to speak, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, up 17-6, the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy It was funny to see on social media a lot of experts basically calling JJ McCarthy not an NFL quarterback. This is like by the second quarter, not an NFL quarterback, a mistake. When's Carson Wentz getting in? And then lo and behold, McCarthy leads them on 3 consecutive scoring drives in the fourth quarter. They go up 27-17 to basically, I don't want to say put the game away, but, the Bears obviously got that last touchdown, but that did it. That McCarthy 14-yard touchdown run sealed it up, and then Minnesota starts off 1-0, and the Bears are still the Bears. Now you're happy about some things with the Bears. Caleb Williams didn't throw a pick. You got a running game because of Caleb Williams. He averaged 9.5 yards a carry there. DeAndre Swift, I feel like they need more. DeAndre Swift was the only running back to get a carry in that game. He had 17. That's not enough running for a Ben Johnson offense that did an excellent job in Detroit, mixing Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So someone's got to step up for the Bears on the running the ball so that when they are up 17-6 or when they are up in the fourth quarter, they can maybe grind out some yards and milk the clock and not have to rely on their quarterback to be moving the chains with his legs. It's a disappointing opener for the Bears. It's a game they probably feel they should have won, and yet you can see some incremental progress with Caleb Williams. You can see a couple of plays made there. It was nice to see them get a touchdown from Rome Odunze. So I'm just saying week 1 is week 1, and the Vikings, you got to be impressed by their way to come back. So now the Bears have to go play Detroit, and I think Detroit's going to be absolutely motivated coming off their week 1 loss to the Packers. Now, Detroit's offense did not look good week 1. And everybody, and Detroit in general didn't look good. They got embarrassed by the Packers, 27-13. And their offense that scored all those points last year basically did nothing. They didn't get a touchdown until the fourth quarter when that third-round rookie Isaac Tesla caught one, and they were already down 27-6. So naturally, everybody is talking about the loss of Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator, the loss of Aaron Glenn as their defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach of the Jets. They lost their pass game coordinator, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Jets. Everybody's talking about that, and rightfully so. But I think with the Lions, what's going sort of under the radar is the fact that their offensive line is not the same. They lost Frank Ragnow, who was a 3-time – he retired. He was an excellent center, 3-time Pro Bowl center, if I'm not mistaken. Kevin Zeitler was a right guard. He was a good right guard. He's being replaced by a rookie. Zeitler's a journeyman, and he's been good on teams that are good around him, like when he was with the Ravens, the Bengals a couple of years ago, and, of course, last year with the Lions. He's a guy who, if you have a good offensive line, he can go in there and hold the fort down. So when they had Ragnow, Zeitler, and Penei Sewell at right tackle, they were and of course, Taylor Decker at left tackle, one of the best offensive lines in the league. They were right up there with the Eagles last year in what they were able to do, just resetting the line of scrimmage, giving Goff plenty of time to throw. Well, now you have a new center, Graham Glasgow. Now you got a new right guard. He's a rookie, Tate Ratledge, okay? That's 2/5 of your offensive line. But it's not just 2/5. It's two guys who are trying to fill – one guy's a multiple-time Pro Bowl, and the other guy's a really good right guard. And to me, that was the start of that, or that is the root of the Lions' struggles in the opener. Now, again, this is not something they can't work around. I'm not saying these 2 new offensive linemen stink and the Lions will never recover. I expect them to recover this week. I'm just saying that offensive line play generally functions best with continuity, and the Lions have 2 new starters there. So it's not surprising to me that their offense in week 1, with also the new coordinator, John Morton, didn't look like it looked last year. I have faith in Dan Campbell. I think it's a well-coached team with good personnel on offense and defense. So I expect the Lions to get back on the winning track pretty soon, and probably against the Bears. Rams, Titans. Interesting game. I got some feedback from people who thought I was crazy last week when I said I thought the Titans would go to Denver and contend. I even, in my 3 picks, picked the Titans to cover. Guess what? They covered. Now, they didn't look great offensively. They only scored, 12 points Was it I'm not sitting here patting myself on the back. They didn't pull off an upset. It was more that I'm not fully bought in to the Broncos outside of their defense. Their defense is fantastic. I take nothing away from it. I'm not fully bought into Bo Nix. I liked his rookie year. I'm not taking away anything. It's a team that doesn't have a ton of playmakers. And so I don't know how much they can scratch and claw each week with Nix and J.K. Dobbins and, milking Cortland Sutton, their best playmaker, for as much as they can. They have to rely on their defense to win. And they did. They won 20-12, mainly because their defense did a nice job. But I thought that the Titans would be representative with Cam Ward at quarterback. He didn't have a great game, but he didn't have a terrible game. They played good defense, ran the ball okay. So now they come home and they play a Rams team that got itself a win in the opener. Matthew Stafford, despite the back injury, has looked fine. He actually had a really nice game. The Rams are a team that's better than the Titans. Their defense, the Rams, is something that we're going to be talking about this year. In fact, when I previewed last week's game against the Rams and the Texans, I said I felt like that would be a defensive battle because both offenses it was the Texans offense had struggled last year, and the Rams are not normally a team that's going to score 30, 35 points. They're deliberate. They run the ball. They throw to their two very good wide receivers, kick field goals. They're efficient, kind of like how I've talked about the Packers a little bit. So it's not surprising that they won 14-9. Now they go to Tennessee, should win the game, but we'll see. I think the Titans are an improved team. The Rams are 5.5-point favorites. It's a dangerous kind of spread just because they're on the road, but I get it. The Rams are a very good team, and the Titans are still trying to learn how to play football a little bit with all their new personnel. I would not be surprised if this was also a low-scoring game. The total is 41.5, so that just tells you that the odds makers don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game either. I totally can see the Rams winning this game like 20-10, 20-6, something like that, 17-13. Very, very easily see that. Patriots, Dolphins. Now, this is one of those moments and games where I'm going to say this might have been a week one thing. The Dolphins were just absolutely humiliated in Indianapolis by Daniel Jones and the Colts. And it was such a bad loss, 33-8, that the Dolphins have already had a report. I read this, must have been a report. The Dolphins already have had a team meeting to make sure everybody is on the same page. Tell me the last time you've heard of a team having a team meeting after the first week of the season. But you know what? I can't blame them. You go to Indianapolis, you got a healthy Tua, you got Tyreek Hill trying to make amends for his last year. You got Waddle, and you absolutely come out completely and totally unprepared to play a football game. The most embarrassing effort, the most embarrassing outcome, the most embarrassing performance by far of the week. And if I were Mike McDaniel, I'd be absolutely scared for my job security. Totally scared. I have not seen a team that unprepared to play in week one in a long, long time. Oh, I mean, a team that has talent. I don't think the Dolphins are a Super Bowl contender, but I just named for you some of their better players. They have no business going into Indianapolis and losing by 25 points to Daniel Jones and the Colts. So why do I say this is a week one thing? Well, because they're home against the Patriots. Patriots also lost their opener against the Raiders. Did not look very good. I always feel this. You hear me say this a lot. The South Florida teams have a huge advantage in September, especially when they're playing either a Northeast team or a Midwest team, somebody who's not used to in September, mid-September, still going and at 1:00 in the afternoon feeling it's supposed to be 87 degrees in Miami. That'll feel like 90 to 95, the humidity. The Dolphins enjoy one of the best September home field advantages. And now they're coming off just completely having their asses handed to them. They're 1.5-point favorites at home. I think that they will win. I expect them to play better. I expect them not to embarrass themselves. I expect Mike McDaniel to have some kind of answer against a Patriots team that frankly is not very good. All right. They want to be better. They made a ton of additions. They lost to the Raiders in the season opener. I mean, the Raiders. Okay. So at home, the Patriots lost at home to the Raiders in the season opener. Let that sink in a little bit. They're not ready yet. Now, by the end of the year, maybe all those moves, maybe Mike Vrabel's plan and blueprint will have made a difference. But for week one, the Patriots lost to the Raiders at home. I talked about how West Coast team last week. West Coast teams can go to the East Coast and win these games now. It's not that crazy, and that's what the Raiders did. And so now the Patriots have to go to Miami. It's a rivalry, AFC East game. And I would expect that the Dolphins will get their act together and be a lot more formidable. If they are not, when I do this show next week, I will tell you that the Dolphins are in some serious trouble, and it will be hard to take them seriously in any game the rest of the way if they completely implode against the Patriots again. 49ers at the Saints. The 49ers are 1-0, had a nice victory over the Seahawks. I'm not quite sure who or what the Seahawks are yet, but it was good for the 49ers. McCaffrey stayed healthy, and it was an NFC West win. That's going to be a competitive division all year long, and the 49ers are that team that's trying to bounce back from last year. I felt that they would win the game. They did, but they paid a price. The price is the same price that the 49ers pay every freaking year. I don't know what's up with their training staff or their doctors or whatever. Maybe it's just bad luck, but the 49ers just can't stay out of their own way when it comes to injuries. So there'll be no Brock Purdy. He's banged up. There's no George Kittle. He's out. I think Juwan Jennings got hurt too. So Mac Jones gets the ball. They're fortunate that they're playing the Saints, who are about as bad as any team in football, but it's in the Superdome. Not always easy to go and win the Superdome. I still think the 49ers are fortunate and should probably win this game. But, man, this team and all its injuries, I think I thought I read that Trent Williams got hurt in the game as well. So do they have enough to beat the Saints? Yes. Is it great that McCaffrey stayed healthy? Absolutely. Ricky Pearsall is a name I mentioned as a guy who I thought was really going to come into his own this year. He had 108 yards. Great. Let's just, if you're the 49ers, you hope you get out of this game with those guys healthy, because if anybody else goes down for a long time, especially, then they're screwed. That's just the reality of it. They should be able to beat the Saints. The Saints are just not good. You know, they lose at home to, in week one, who did they lose to? I remember, Rattler didn't play very well. Why am I all of a sudden blanking on who the New Orleans Saints? Oh, they're the Cardinals. That's right. They lost 20-13. Rattler got the opportunity. Now, some people might be surprised that Rattler threw the ball 46 times in the game, despite the game never really being, it's not like they were ever down 10, 15, 20 points. I think the most that they were down at any time was by maybe 10 in the third quarter. It was mostly a 7 to 10 point game. So why are they throwing the ball 46 games with Rattler? Well, Kellen Moore's their coach. He's got to figure out what he's got. They don't really have much of a running game. I mean, Kamara is a good running back at this stage of his career, but he's not elite like he used to. Their offensive line, not a very good at the moment. And you might as well try to win through you got Kellen Moore. You're going to run a spread offense. You're going to, use a lot of motion, and you're going to try to get the ball to guys like Olave and Juwan Johnson and Rashid Shaheed. Maybe they ran the ball. I'm sorry. Maybe they threw the ball a little bit too much, but they are just not deep at running back. Their backup, Kendry Miller, is hurt a lot. I don't know. To me, Kellen Moore is just trying to figure out, what do I have in Spencer Rattler? What throws can he make? What throws can he not make? Can I, continue to go with him? Do I have to get Tyler Shuck ready to play? There's a lot of questions, and that's how most Saints games are going to be throughout the year. All right, Bills Jets, another great AFC East early game. Now, the Jets looked more like the Lions of last year than the Lions, except they did not play great defense against the Steelers, and they got burned. And only the Jets, in very Jet fashion, could score over 30 points and still lose to the quarterback that they had but didn't want. They flew him in just to tell him they didn't want him and then kicked him to the curb. And then they have this opportunity to show you in Aaron Glenn's debut that they are new and that they're going to be this team that's feared, and they score points. And then what happens? Well, they still lose. But if you're going to take a positive, their offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrom, did a really nice job making the Jet offense try to look like what he had last year with the Lions. Engstrom was the pass game coordinator for the Lions under Ben Johnson, who was the offensive coordinator. Well, now he's the offensive coordinator with the Jets. What did you see? You saw, just like the Lions had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, this two-headed rushing attack. Well, you saw that with the Jets. Three-headed rushing attack if you want to throw Justin Fields in there. But you saw Breece Hall get the majority of carries, have a nice game. Braylon Allen, I mentioned him. He was able to get a few carries and get in there. They're going to ground and pound. Really, the Jets have to be impressed by how well their offensive line played. Their tackles, first-round pick from Missouri, played well at right tackle. The first-round pick from Penn State a couple of years ago played well at left tackle. The interior blocked well. They did a lot of really good things offensively. And for all the worry and concern about Justin Fields in the preseason, folks, that's why the preseason doesn't matter. That's why training camp stats don't matter. Fields was 16 of 22, 218, had a touchdown, no interceptions. He got the ball, again, like the Lions. The Lions, Goff started that thing. They would run the ball, and then he would get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot. Well, Fields got the ball to his best receiver, Garrett Wilson, 7 times for 95 yards and a touchdown. So you got 107 rushing yards from Hall, 50 more from Fields, and a few more from their other running backs, and you ran the ball well. And now, why the Jets defense played like crap? Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers 1 year removed from being off of that Achilles. Last year he played 1 year off the Achilles, or right off the Achilles injury. This is now a year later. Plus, he's on the Steelers team that has a lot solid of an infrastructure, to put it kindly, than the Jets do. And even though he wasn't very mobile, he even said his back started to stiff up. 244 and 4 touchdowns tells you something. So the Jets had some trouble containing there, and that should be a big red flag as they go up against Josh Allen and the Bills. Because if Aaron Rodgers could do that, Josh Allen can do that and then some. So the Jets are home, and you got to like their offense and running game and what they can do. They're going to ground and pound under Aaron Glenn, but they're going to have to tighten it up defensively. They're obviously 6.5-point underdogs to the Bills. Surprise us not a little bit more, but I wouldn't be surprised if the style of football they play, the Jets, by being a ground and pound team, could keep this thing close and make it a game. That's, if you're Aaron Glenn, after losing in your opener, I think it was his introductory press conference. At one point he said he just wants to make his fans proud. I don't think the realistic Jet fan, if he's out there or she's out there, expects the Jets to beat the Bills. I think it is realistic to say, hey, can we be competitive? Can we do some things to keep us in this game? Look forward to seeing if that happens. Seahawks, Steelers, 1 o'clock. Seahawks did not look very good against the 49ers. It's just 1 week. This is year 2 of Mike McDaniel. Defensively, they looked okay. Offensively, it's, run the ball a little bit because you want to be a running team. Throw the ball to Jaxson, Smith, and Jigba quite a bit. But it wasn't enough to beat the 49ers. Meanwhile, the Steelers, they look like if they can get that kind of offensive production from Rodgers, if they can continue to run the ball diversely, I guess, with Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell. I mean, Caleb Johnson did nothing. He was one of those rookies that I was looking forward to that I talked about last week, but he's clearly down on the depth chart. This is a Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell running game right now. But with Aaron Rodgers being able to throw the ball like he did and get the ball to Metcalf and Freiermuth and Calvin Austin, that changes how you might think about the Steelers just a little bit. I would expect that they will be able to handle. They don't lose very much at home, and underrated in what they do is how good their kicker is. Chris Boswell. I mean, for years it was Akers and then Justin Tucker. And then, of course, Harrison Buckner is in there, but I don't think we talk enough about how good of a kicker that Chris Boswell is. And he nailed a 60-yarder to win that game against the Jets. So he's a little lucky that it was September because you don't nail 60-yard field goals at MetLife Stadium in December, January, and February. But nonetheless, great job by him. Great kicker. And the Steelers looking competitive so far after 1 week. All right, the 4:00 games. So Broncos at Colts. Now, this is where we're going to find out what's week 1 real and what is week 1 fake, because the Colts stay home. Now they got a real team coming in, the Broncos, who, again, I'm not sure how I feel about the Bronco offense, but I know how good the Bronco defense is. Can Daniel Jones, who threw for 272 yards, who is really efficient with the ball, took a few deep shots, but was mainly throwing the ball to Warren, threw a couple of passes to his running backs, got a great game from Taylor. I mean, the way the Colts played, absolutely, at least for 1 week, made the decision to play Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson, which was very controversial. They made that decision look like genius. And it's almost as if Shane Steichen felt, man, I've got a good offensive line. I got a really good an elite running back. I have a pretty good defense. I've just added a great rookie in Tyler Warren. If I could just get my quarterback to be efficient, he doesn't have to be great, but can he be efficient? Then I might be able to win some games and surprise some people. And that's exactly what Daniel Jones was. I don't want to sit here. I know some people are, will he be this year's Sam Darnold? I don't know if he's going to throw for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns or anything like that. He threw 1 touchdown pass, threw for 272 yards. He did throw a couple of deep balls, but nothing like really crazy. I think the longest one was 36 yards to Pierce. And then everything after that was, mid-range, intermediary. Some guys made yards after the catch. So we'll see. Can he do this? I'm not expecting him to carve up the Broncos defense. Nobody carves up the Broncos defense. But can he perform well? Can he keep them in the game? They're at home. They're 1.5-point underdogs. Can he pull off an upset or keep it close so that in the fourth quarter it's anybody's play to make? That to me will be the interesting thing. Either that or the pumpkin for Cinderella, or a coach has turned back into a pumpkin, and the Broncos are going to come out of there with a pretty convincing win. And we're going to look back at the Colts week 1 and say, yep, that was a week 1 con job. Other 4:00 game, Panthers at Cardinals. And I'm sorry, I had high hopes for Panthers Jaguars last week. I thought it would be a little bit more of an aerial display for both teams, and it was an aerial display for none of the teams. So I don't know if there was a major step back taken by Bryce Young there. He did get the ball at Ted McMillan. Xavier Legette has not looked good as a rookie, and it did not look good in his first game. So I just don't know if there's enough weaponry for Bryce Young to continue to make a progression with. But, the Cardinals, they're a good team. They're not a great team. So if Dave Canales is going to figure something out, he's got to do it quickly. At least he has a Cardinals team that he can do it against. But we'll see. I am not encouraged. I hope that's just a week 1 thing by how bad the Panthers were. Cardinals were efficient. We talked about them. They went to the Superdome. They beat a bad Saints team. Murray played well. He got the ball to McBride. He got the ball to Marvin Harrison. Got a little bit of a running game out of Benson, their backup running back, as they gave him probably more opportunity than normal. And he and Connor were able to split some carries. It was a nice, efficient win for the Cardinals. They're 6.5-point favorites over the Panthers. They're home. They should win the game, especially if the Panthers aren't very good. And it would be very good for the Cardinals to start off 2-0 and to continue to just play solid football. They made some pretty good additions in the offseason to me to be not, they're not great, but they should be better. And last year they were starting to make some improvements. So we'll see. A 2-0 start will go a long way for Arizona. I'm not going to get into the 425 game much because we obviously have that covered on Inside the Birds pregame show. Eagles at Chiefs. Eagles are 1.5-point favorites. I'll just say that both of these teams are extraordinarily gifted at being able to win games without playing their best game. Both of these teams can win very ugly. And one of the conversations that we had on the pregame show with myself, Adam Kaplan, and Greg Cosell is that the embarrassment the Chiefs faced in getting slaughtered in the Super Bowl, I feel has made some people forget that they actually went 15-1 last year. So you can look at it as that, well, because they got every single break known to man and won every game in the fourth quarter, and now this year will be their comeuppance. Okay, maybe it will. Or you can say that's how good they are, is that, you almost have to beat them twice sometimes. And, they're in Arrowhead. It's going to be 91 degrees. I did not think when the week started that was going to be the temperature in Kansas City. So maybe bust out the pickle juice if you're the Eagles. But I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either end. I think both teams are dealing with some tough injuries on offense, and that will impact how they play. And you can check out the Inside the Birds pregame show with myself, Adam, and Greg to get the full breakdown on that. 8:20, Falcons at Vikings. Falcons. The Falcons, I talked about last week, they always figured out a way to beat Tampa. Somehow they beat Tampa twice last year in their division and still lost the division by 2 games. It's like they could beat Tampa and nobody else. And then they go and they play Tampa in week 1 and they got a chance to win and the kicker misses a field goal. So maybe the Bucs have finally reversed their fortunes there, but that's a pretty tough loss for the Falcons. It's a game they should have won. I think it was a 44-yarder. Certainly nothing, extreme or out of the ordinary, but the Falcons lose. They fell to 0-1. I'm sure they're going to be kicking themselves. Got a decent game out of Penix, who is now their official starter. Bijan Robinson, more of a factor in the pass game than the run game. Really interesting. He took that first pass 50 yards for a touchdown. I didn't think Bucs Falcons was going to be a game that combined for only 43 points. I thought there would be a little bit more, but there was not. That's what happens when NFC South teams, collide. Now, the same story for the Falcons. They have no edge rush. They had 2 guys split a half a sack in that game. Nobody else. And then only one other person, one of their rookies, James Pierce, got a quarterback hit. If they're not going to get sacks, if they're not going to create pressure, they're not going to win. They're not going to go to Minnesota and win a game if they can't make J.J. McCarthy uncomfortable in some form or fashion, especially after McCarthy got his groove there in the fourth quarter of that win against the Bears. The Falcons aren't a bad team. They're not a great team. They've got good talent, but they are so lacking in any kind of great pass rush right now that when you face these teams that either have good quarterbacks or have good offensive coaching staffs and know how to scheme or can run like the Vikings can with Jordan Mason and your other running back, Aaron Jones. I mean, it's hard to win if you can't rush the passer. So the Vikings are 3.5-point favorites coming off that turnaround win against the Bears. And I could see the Vikings winning that game. It's going to be tough for the Falcons. They're not that far away. They just need somebody to either rush the passer or they need their defensive coordinator to figure out a way to scheme it up. Hey, fall is planting season. Did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when planted this time of the year? But you got to know where to start, and that's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air's getting a little chilly where you are, the plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. They've got everything your yard needs: fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, flowering trees, so much more. And Fast Growing Trees makes it so easy for you to have your dream yard because you can order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door. If you're like me, you're tired of spending way too much money on landscaping. And if you walk into one of those nurseries and you look at all the stuff they have, you have no idea where to begin. That's why you need fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter about the size of your yard. They got over 6,000 plants to fit any space, and a 14-point quality checklist ensures you will get the best quality plants possible. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code BIRDS at checkout. 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code BIRDS at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use BIRDS to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show. The Monday night games, you get two Monday night games. You got Bucs Texans at 7:00. This is sort of a fascinating game. The Texans are 2.5-point favorites. Couldn't have made a worse debut offensively, coming off last year and trying to fix their issues. Now I know they had some offensive line issues. They had to move guys around at the last minute. I think the left tackle got sick, so they had to play a rookie at left tackle. Or they were going to, the rookie left tackle was when I got sick, so they had to move somebody else to left tackle, and then move the right guard to right tackle, and start a different guy at right guard. That's the last thing you want when you're trying to get your continuity back after last year. But it didn't work. I mean, it didn't help that they were facing a Rams team that is very good defensively. But this Texans team needs to figure it out on offense. So I will apply the old week one is a con job deal to the Texans because I still have high hopes for them being a better offense. Did I see that they were also without Christian Kirk? He's banged up too. Man, I don't know. I want to think better of this Texans team. Their defense is very good, and that did show up against the Rams. I mean, they only give up 14 points. So they had a couple of sacks and they generated some pressure, but they got to be able to score points. If they don't score points, they're going to struggle to beat the Bucs. Bucs, I told you last week, there were a couple of rookies that I had my eyes on. Tyler Warren was one. You saw him for the Colts, 77 yards, even had a run. I think a 3-yard run. They're going to continue to use Tyler Warren. He is going to be a weapon. He's going to be fun to watch this year. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to be the centerpiece of that offense like he was at Penn State. They're going to use it. I'm waiting for them to use him as a quarterback like Penn State did, as not just a wildcat quarterback, but even to throw a pass. But I'm getting off track. I'm talking about the Bucs now. Emeka Egbuka. I told you last week, this is going to be one of the rookies that's going to hit the ground running. And he sure did. 67 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a long touchdown against the Falcons too, a 30-yarder in the second quarter, a 25-yarder in the fourth quarter. That basically put them ahead. That was the game-winning touchdown. You put him and Mike Evans, and they will at some point in a couple of weeks get Chris Godwin back, and that offense is going to take off. And obviously, Bucky Irving gave you his yards. So do I think the Texans defense can shut them down? Yeah, I think this will be a good game. And there's a reason the Texans are 2.5-point favorites. But if the Texans don't score, if they don't score 20 points, they're not winning this game 20-17 or 20-13. They're going to have to score some points to beat the Bucs, because the Bucs have shown you now for a couple of years that Mayfield's real. He is legit. He can throw the ball, and they got a lot of weapons. So I expect that the Buccaneers, they probably won't score 30, 35 or anything like that, but they will put some offensive stress on this Texans. The Texans will have to score. 10 o'clock game, Chargers at Raiders. The Raiders are a prime example of what happens when you give yourself a quarterback. He doesn't have to be a great quarterback, but you give yourself a quarterback who is functional, who is accurate, who knows how to play the game. I mean, the Raiders have been trotting out guys, and no disrespect to any of them, but whether it's Minshew or Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo, they bring in a real head coach in Pete Carroll. They trade for Geno Smith, right? And Geno Smith right away shows you that when you have a professional quarterback who is accurate, who can thread windows, which Geno Smith can do very well, who can put the ball down the field, who can find the open guy, it gives you a chance. Now, it sounds like I'm sitting here blowing up the Raiders. No, I don't think the Raiders are great. I don't think they're going to beat the Chargers. But there is a difference when you have a guy like Geno Smith, who is a functional, capable, and at times very good quarterback. Sometimes if you ask him to throw the ball too much, you'll get a couple of picks. He is a risk taker. He will fumble if you get pressure on him and hit him. He's not the most mobile guy in the pocket. So I'm not sitting here and telling you I think Geno Smith is a top 5 guy, a top 8 guy. I'm just simply saying the difference between Geno Smith and what the Raiders were playing at quarterback is the difference between the Raiders not being in a whole lot of games or only every once in a while pulling out a win that nobody expects them to being more functional. And then you add Ashton Genty and his ability to run, right? And then you got Bowers who can catch the ball, and you got Trey Tucker. You have all of a sudden Deontay. I know they got this a rookie that they really like, Thornton. Okay. I'm not telling you anything about the Raiders that I think they're going to win a ton of games. If they win 6 or 7, that's a major improvement. Jacoby Myers, another guy that Geno can throw the ball to. All right. I just think that you'll see a Raiders team that is far more competitive this year. They will run the ball because that's what Pete Carroll wants to do. And they now have Ashton Genty to do it. He had a slow start. Okay. No big deal. Doesn't mean that. So did Amarian Hampton. Doesn't really mean anything. The Raiders will run the ball. Geno Smith will complete 66 to 68% of his passes, which means he will move the chains. And I don't think you'll see the Raiders blown out a whole lot. Now, with me having said that, watch them go lose by 21 to the Chargers on Monday night because the Chargers looked really, really good against the Chiefs. They threw the ball. Justin Herbert ran. He closed out the game with a big run, made some big plays down the field to Quentin Johnson. Their defense, watch their defense on tape. It looked pretty good. I liked what Jesse Minter does. He doesn't show the same looks all the time. He plays multiple fronts. They twist, they stunt, they take Tuli Tuipulotu. They'll play him at the 3 tech. They'll play him at a 5 tech. They'll play him as a stand-up rusher. I like this Chargers team. I think they're going to be pretty good. My biggest question about them going into the year was, do they have enough offensive weaponry? We'll see. It was an okay game for Hampton in week 1 against the Raiders. I mean, they were able to score points, obviously, but I still wonder if that's who they are. Are they going to be able to get 2 touchdowns every week from Quentin Johnson? I don't know. It was mind-boggling to me that Keenan Allen was targeted 10 times and caught 7 passes for 68 yards and a touchdown. That to me is mind-boggling. It's almost like he's that Undertaker meme. He's dead, and all of a sudden he just comes out, sits up, and bam, Keenan Allen is back looking like he's a Charger from 2 years ago or 5 years ago. But that was a good win by the Chargers. Chargers-Raiders is always fun because it's AFC West battle. I expect that the Chargers will figure out a way to win. But I also think that the Raiders are in a position now where they can be competitive and respectable, and we'll see. And by the way, the line's 3.5. It's in Las Vegas. So, obviously the Chargers are still favored by 3.5, but in Vegas should be a very interesting game. Sports are all about competition. Every snap, every possession, every clutch moment matters. That same energy is what 1v1 Me brings to video games. Every single day, you can watch and stake on matchups in Madden, NBA 2K, FC, and Call of Duty Search and Destroy. All the games are streamed live. Every match has refs, and payouts are instant. And these aren't just random online lobbies. These are the best players in the scene, pros, streamers, and rivals. With season playoffs and the championship game on the line, every game matters. Over $100 million has already been paid out on the app, and the community is growing fast. If you're a sports fan, a gamer, or just someone who loves having a little extra on the line, 1v1 Me is where you need to be. It's not just about winning, it's about the bragging rights too. Every match has a chat going crazy, and you can back your picks in real time. Download today and use code BIRDS, Your first steak on the app is risk-free. That's code BIRDS for a risk-free first steak. So that wraps up the games as far as my 3 picks. So let's go through. Last week, I was 2-1. I had the Raiders getting 2.5 at the Patriots. They won the game outright. I took the Titans to cover the 8.5 versus the Broncos. They only lost by 8, so they covered. And unfortunately, I took the Dolphins getting 1.5 in Indianapolis. They were destroyed. They could have gotten 20, and I still would have lost. So 2-1. And let's go to this week's games. I am going back to the Dolphins. Well, I think you guys probably could have assumed that based on the way I was talking about them. They are 1.5-point favorites over the Patriots. Again, South Florida, heat, humidity, big advantage. Had a team meeting. They know that there's a lot at stake here. Mike McDaniel knows there's a lot at stake. I expect them to beat the Patriots by more than 3 points. Steelers at home. They are 2.5-point favorites over the Seahawks. A little always dangerous because both teams run defense, and those can make for some weird competitive games. But I just think the Steelers have, with Aaron Rodgers playing the way he did, if that was not a con job, if he's really comfortable in this Steelers offense, just want to see the Steelers defense play. A little surprised by how many points they give up against the Jets, but they're at home, and the Steelers are very, very tough at home. So I don't expect that they'll cover the 2.5 over Seattle. And the Cowboys. Cowboys 5.5 over the Giants. A little bit of a gamble. I really don't like to take divisional games, and I'm doing 2 here with Dolphins, Patriots, and Cowboys, Giants, only because divisional games are also tend to be a little weird and fluky. But that's more later in the season. Early in the season, it's usually just who's the better team. And until the Giants get better on the offensive line and healthier, I can't take them. And I'm not saying it's not a winnable game for the Giants again, but I can't, in good faith, have them cover in Dallas where they always seem to lose. So Cowboys 5.5, Dolphins 1.5 over the Patriots, Steelers 2.5 over the Seahawks, and the Cowboys covering 5.5 over the Giants are my 3 picks this week. That's going to do it for the Week 2 NFL preview on Inside the Birds. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Now go enjoy your football watching.